podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your guide as we explore the world of landscape photography through the eyes and lenses of photographers, both up and coming and seasoned professionals. I'm trying to dig a little deeper into the way they think about their photography, how it fits in their lives and where they see it going in the future. This week I sit down with David Baker, a UK photographer who started with a small digital camera photographing standing stones. Early photo blogging and the feedback it generated gradually shifted his focus from simple documentation towards images that convey how a place actually feels. Based in rural Aberdeenshire, after a lifetime on the south coast of England, David works exclusively in long-term projects, each with its own constraints and parameters. 5 books published, more than 20 exhibitions, including 3 appearances at the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition, and an Arts Council-funded solo show at Southampton City Art Gallery mark out a serious and sustained practice. In this episode, David talks about using mapped circles, triangles, and specific times as creative constraints, the role of instinct over heavy planning, and why printing and handmade books are the essential final step in his process. He also reflects on how moving to northeast Scotland has changed his subjects while keeping his project-based approach completely intact. I hope you enjoy the show.
G'day, David. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How's your day been?
Fine, thanks very much. It's still mid-morning here, so in sunny Scotland. When I say sunny, that word's doing a lot of heavy lifting, but in Scotland anyway.
Yeah, I've been to Scotland a couple of times, and I know how sunny it can get, and I also know how wet it can be too. But we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about photography, and in particular, David Baker's photography. So let's start with, why is David Baker a photographer? What got you started? What was it that said, photography is the life for me?
Well, I think I've always wanted to be a creator, but I had no interest in photography at all. I had no sort of like father or grandfather who took me under his wing and did this and did that. Nothing at all. It was only a way of, I used to visit a lot of standing stones, a swim circle, Norman, and I wanted a way of recording those. So I had a tiny little Canon camera, a digital one. I've never used film. It was like a little 2 megapixel camera, and it provided a way of recording where I went all the way across England and Wales and Scotland. And it was okay, it was fine. And then I was on a gaming site where I used to do a lot of online gaming, and people were posting up photos on there. So I thought, okay, let's try and do something more about this. And I thought, this is actually quite engaging, I thought this is quite good. And somebody on there, a guy called Jamie, said, why don't we start a photo blog where you post up a photo each day? And I thought, no, it gives me to achieve, to do something. And it really developed from there. And that was about 2003, 2004. And then photo blogs were massive on there. And I suddenly thought, where have you been all my life? This is fantastic creative output. This was marvelous. And I thought all the ideas I had when I was about 16 being an architect, here I could be, or an artist, here I could be something creative. And wonderful feedback was digital. It was just a marvelous thing to do. And a lot of people take pictures of flowers in their garden and they become, say, I don't know, or wildlife, but it was always the landscape for me.
Interesting.
And I used to take Outdoor Photography magazine, and there was a photograph by a guy called Guy Edwards. And it was then my local piece of coast. And I thought, maybe I can go off and do that. And he had taken it in November, close to sunset. There was a beautiful light. I went down in the middle of August in the summer, and I couldn't work out why mine didn't look like his. And from there onwards, I thought, let's think clearly about this, And then the local library in Southampton, in Hampshire, where I used to live, is magnificent. and it had a huge section about art and photography. I mean, hundreds of books, and that was that. And then I was caught. And no, looking back after that.
Yeah. So what interests me is that first sort of moment that grabbed you. What was that like, and where was it?
Well, it was really just taking these photographs of visiting standing stones and things.
Yeah.
I think and used to look at these things, and I wanted a record because so we could. I used to print the little photographs out and put them in like would there be a photo album to record trips so I can remember what we'd seen and that sort of system. And I thought that was very good. I didn't see the value at all in photography as an art form. I had zero interest in that. I didn't see that at all. No. Not at all. I bought no photo books. I never went to see photo exhibitions. Nothing. I just saw that as a way of having a visual record, a documentary record, really. It wasn't until later on that I took those steps towards seeing that more as projects, and I began to be engaged in looking at people who had done projects. I was not so interested in the one-off image. I like the idea there were projects.
Interesting. Yeah. I want to get into the project side of things, but I'm also interested in that moment when you sort of said, okay, this is actually art. You mentioned that, that it was a way of creating and a wonderful sort of experience, both taking the image in the field and then working through to end up with an image at the end of the process. But I'm keen to sort of see where you identified, hey, this is actually an artistic pursuit as opposed to a documentary pursuit.
Well, I think there's a slight crossover emerging perhaps between the two, because there's also where I live, there's a beach called West Wittering, which is about 30 miles away. Yep. I seen a photograph. I went down then, and that's where I really sort of cut my coast-hugging teeth down there. And I came away initially with about 300 digital photographs of the same bit of beach, and I thought, this is rubbish. So I wanted to try to record of how it felt to be there.
Yep.
How it felt to be there where it's close to sunset, or when it's on winter, or what have you. And I began to feel that maybe I could create a body of work or look at something to go beyond just a documentary of here is a photograph of where I was, and to show more careful composition, I suppose, what you're leaving outside the frame. Be careful of those edges. I was very keen about that at the time. I was never interested in all the rules, but just what's up the frame. Because I read a book of somebody who was a time life photographer, and he said he never had anything interesting in the top right-hand corner or top left-hand corner, because that's where the magazine logo always went. So I thought, get my edges, what's coming on here? And I had a love of Renaissance narrative painting, where you often had a story going on. What's going on here? And I wanted people to have a look, not just my photography, to say, what is going on here? What's is that connection between the left and the right hand side? And I began to realize that people thought about this stuff quite a lot. And that got me down to, this could be an artistic medium. So I then began to get more photo books at the library, and I started buying them. It sounds cliche, but this is a nourishment,
Yeah. Well, I said kind of like any kind of study, if you want to immerse yourself in what other people are doing and understand how they convey messages in their photography and how they put together compositions and use tone and color and those sorts of things. Immersing yourself in that is a form of study, and it actually gives you that opportunity then to say, okay, well, I can, and I sincerely believe that not direct copying, but mimicry, if you like, of somebody else's work is a path to learning, not just how to do what they're doing, but also how to develop your own feeling for the subject matter or the content of your frame. And so for me, I always look at that and go, okay, well, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to get out there, get books, scour the internet, whatever you need to do to find things that inspire you and help you along that
Yeah.
journey. And whether that happened early on or later in that journey, I don't think it matters.
No, that's a very good point, because yes, and also you like paying tribute to another photographer. There was a very famous landscaper called Joe Cornish here, who looked at his work and you thought, wow, how can he do, and you didn't want to copy it, but you wanted sometimes to visit the places he was going to. It used to be, when I was early photoblogging, it was very location based, and it became less of location.
Yeah.
Because it's more about what were you trying to achieve with your work. Were you trying to, if you go to the scene, you say, I want to show the power of the energy, the smell of the sword, that's wonderful freedom. It doesn't really matter where you are on the coast. If you've got that here or there or 200 miles away, it's more important. But again, so I mean, and some people do copy other photographers' work, but you've got to have, it's a lovely tribute. If you look at a photograph and you say, hey, that's a Joe Blog photo, that's a wonderful thing. Some recognize your own stuff, or that's a Michael Kenner photograph, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or that looks as though, did you copy Michael Kenner? And that may be very well. That could be good, but at some point, you've got to find your own voice, I suppose, don't you? Really?
Absolutely, yeah. That's an important part of every photographer's journey, is finding, this is my voice, this is the subject matter, but also the style of composition, also the style of editing, all of those things combine to make up your voice as a photographer and give you the ability to say something that is uniquely yours. And whether that is finding unique compositions, whether they're the broader landscape or something more intimate, I don't think matters. It's really up to you to decide what you're going to say with your photography.
Very much so, yes.
Keen to learn how you sort of developed your voice, because I certainly can recognise a David Baker, having looked at a number of your, but yeah, you kind of knew this question was coming, but I'm keen to understand how different photographers sort of get to that point where they go, okay, and you said you started immersing yourself. So tell me a little bit more about where things went from there.
Well, the photoblog was the absolute generator of all this. I had to get material up to the photoblog. When I first started, we used to put up a photo that we'd taken that day. That was difficult because I was living in Southampton, working in London. I had a 2 hour, 10-minute commute each way. And I was doing long hours, and I had to find something like at lunchtime. It became impossible. So,
well, winter time, almost impossible to get a shot at all.
So usually it was a walk to the station. Oh, that looks interesting. I had to do that, It didn't really fulfill, and I was tempting to drop it. But then after that, I went away or, used the weekends to generate material and stuff, or what have you. And it became more and more about the sea. There's no particular one moment where that started. I've always had an interest in that. I've always had seaside holidays, and I've always been interested in the idea that when you're at the sea, at a shoreline, it's a sort of change. Because if you're standing on a sandy beach, for example, that beach has changed since the last time the tide was in. There's a change there. And that's very rare. You can go into a forest and the trees are usually often the same. You go to the same pub, but the same beach changed. And also, without getting too hippie, a change often comes over yourself, because if people go to the beach, very often if they walk on the beach, they think big, deep thoughts. And I love that idea. You have something so accessible. So I began to go to the beach a lot more, get material, and I wanted to see this. Again, it was location-based. I wanted to see this part of this beach. What does it look like at these times of days and things and stuff or what have you? But that was when you began to get an idea of, I want my photographs to look like this. or that, and you begin to develop your own particular style,
Mm.
And then a friend introduced the concept of these 10-stop filters, and you'd experimented by taking photographs through glass or what used to be called like welding masks.
Yep.
And you said, no, you can buy these things, and all of a sudden, a half second became anything up to 600 seconds up the coast.
Yeah.
And you would be there, oh no, I've undercooked that one. And then you'd be trying to get that. They begin to look the same, but you wanted to somehow make it your image in what that you were happy with.
Yep.
You would put up on the photo blog, and then you'd say, I don't know, 5 minutes later, no, don't like that. Pick them. Even though it is a slow process beginning to know what you want, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've explained it, but that's, I'm sticking with it.
Sounds logical to me. The projects, you mentioned that being a significant driver for your photography. Why is that? And how do you decide which project you're going to work on? And how do you decide, okay, well, that's the theme that's going to run through? I personally sometimes struggle with that, and sometimes 3-4 years later, after taking different shots, I go, oh, there is a theme with these ones. There's not a theme with these others, but there is a theme with, A, B, C, D, and E, and that thread I can tie together and make that a project. And I've even sort of finished up with projects that I didn't know that I'd even started, because at the time I didn't know they were projects. What's your process like?
And it's a bit like that. I have a very good fellow called Andy Bell, who runs a photo blog called Deceptive Media.
Mm-hmm.
And we were met through the photo blog 20 odd years ago. And he always had something on the go, whether it's like round things or letters or something else. And I never thought about work. And I had done an exhibition of just the stuff I like. I've gone to a place, I saw a photographer's exhibition, I could have a go. So I've got the photographs printed, and it's basically all the stuff I liked. That was the only connection between it all. I liked the stuff, and that was that. So it's no theme at all. And I thought, that's not particularly good. So shall I do the next exhibition? I thought, shall I do a particular theme about black and white coast in the square? It's all very loose like that. I never start off, I'm a bit like you, I never start off and thinking, I'm going to do a project about this or that or this or this. Recently, when I moved here about 9 years ago, we bought an audience survey map. You get a custom map, the house is in the middle, and I drew a radius about a mile around the house, and I thought, I'm going to go off and take images or whatever I see in that thing. If something comes of it, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Oh.
That's usually how I work, you see. It's like in the New Forest. I was never interested in tree photography. I used to drive through the New Forest, and it's 440,000 acres to get to the coast. I was driving, what do people do? I was driving through, and the light was coming through all these rays, and I thought, wow, that looks fantastic if you're into tree photography. But who is? And off I went into the coast. And then I saw another person's work, whose name escapes me, and he had some tree photography. Well, I'd seen all this, and I thought, maybe I'd go and have a look. Trees, who's interested? Immediately I got there, I was hooked. I mean, it's like immediate. But where he had taken his trees, they'd all been chopped down for, houses and castles or whatever. So I went across the road, and that was that. And I thought, oh, this is very good. And I thought, 440,000 acres in the New Forest, that's too much. So I then thought, let's have a think of some sort of constraints. So I thought of like a triangle. I mapped out in my mind on the map a triangle of land. And I thought, 3 points. What are the 3 points? It's before dawn. It has to be mist. It has to be in winter. So there's another 3 points.
Yep.
And then, fortunately, in there is that sort of triangle, and a lot of people visit during the day, but not at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show what that looked like at that time, at that time of year. So that so that was then my start of doing sort of projects really of you take photographs, you may not have anything at all. I went to Southampton Common, which was about 4 minutes walk from me.
Yep.
Couldn't get into the forest. I was moaning like man, and my then wife said, "I've had enough. Want to go off to this." So off I went to the Southampton Common. They got some trees there, and that's only thought that's actually where I was going like that. So I went back, and I went back, and I went back, and I went back, and I suddenly thought I've got bits of everything here. It's a project me, and a bit like you, I never stop. I tend to sort of you feel your way into something, and you might think. I think it's great if you can say, "I'm going to take projects of this, and this, and it's going to be great." And then work that sort of intuitively way,
Mm-hmm. Do you think setting those sort of constraints, the triangles and the circle you drew around the house and those sorts of things, do you think they help the thinking around the project?
Very much so. I'm not saying there are rules, but for me, it's nice to have that containment, shall I say. If I go over to what's called the Sands of Forty here, I don't go all the way across the other side, and I tend to stay in one particular bit, because I love the idea that it's changing all the time. And it's a bit of like in the New Forest. It was a bit like, I don't want to miss out on something really good in my patch, I want to sort of see, what's there. And where it all changes, that's lovely to see, where this area is so intimately and it changes so well. And the trees are still there, but my goodness, they look different. And you feel different in everything else,
Yeah. You mentioned using Ordnance Survey maps. That's certainly one way of looking, because they give you a really good detailed understanding of what the landscape is likely to look like. Do you do a lot of planning before going out, or do you more rely on instinct and just a more freewheeling approach?
More than that, when we were in photo blogging, we used to meet up, a couple of us, 2, 3, 4 of us, 20% photography, 80% chatting and boozing, which is fantastic. We're here for a reason. Oh, yeah. And then after you get there, and I had a friend there who was on all different planning acts, and the tire's going to be in, the tire's going to be out, and the wind's going to be. And all I just to roll up and think, if it's great, it's great. If it's not, it's not. And if it's not, let's try and make something else. Because with the guy I'm thinking of, if the sky wasn't right in the early morning, my goodness, was he a bear with a sore head? Where the other two of us used to think, well, let's just make of what we can. We've got a week's holiday or something like that. It's just fabulous. And I love that you can go along and just see how the conditions are at the time. I know that sometimes people want particular conditions, and that's great. And it's frustrating they don't exist. But there's no real planning.
Yeah, it's very difficult to plan something that you can't control as well, because the sun's going to come up whether you like it or not, and the clouds will either be in the right place if you're really lucky, but 90% of the time they're not. And so you kind of go, well, yeah, I've got to deal with the conditions I'm dealt, and to me that makes more sense than getting head up and angsty about not getting the conditions that you really wanted.
Well, when I was doing the New Forest stuff, you would look and think, maybe it's going to be misty tomorrow, because I loved that. And then even I was in the centre of Southampton, the docks were 2 miles away. You used to hear the roar of the foghorn, and you think, brilliant. Up, and you're in the forest. I was in the forest in 22 minutes in my pet. And you just used to drive from this small village, and you knew whether it's going to be good or bad. And then when you think, I can't actually see the road signs, this is going to be epic. And then that was very good. Sometimes it was too much. And I was out. And then one morning I saw 2 other photographers on my bit. And I thought, what? It's like being on an Aberdeenshire beach on a bank holiday. You go there, and about 3 miles away, there's somebody else. You think, who on earth is that on my beach? And you notice there's nobody there. So I then thought, okay, I've done this bit to exhaustion anyway. Let's go and pivot. You start taking these same images, let's go off down to these sorts of ways. And then, but so there's no real planning, but the work or what you want drives you. And even though I used to think, there's nothing down the coast, I've been down to my local bit of coast hundreds of times. You go down there, there's always something there.
Yeah.
Always something you can take an image of, or if not, you can have a walk on the beach. What a great thing to do,
Well, yeah, any day at the beach is better than a day in the factory, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right.
You talked about trying to communicate feeling and a story around your images. How successful do you think you've been in that communication?
Here's a question. I don't know. I'm happy with bodies of work. I go for very niche projects now. We're fortunate, we've got a couple of acres we've got about 30 mature trees in the garden here.
Mm-hmm.
I did a whole project about the lime tree in our front garden.
Oh,
I made a book, not a book to sell, but a book about it. But there was I've got about 400 images of the tree, and it's just wonderful. And I love that sort of. So whether I can put across how successful it's been, I don't know. I've had exhibition. I've sold them. You don't want to introduce economics and money into these sorts of things. If they've been successful, I'd have seen that. That's where the camera, my friends wobbly. I've been successful in terms of, I think, I've done this work. I've completed this body of work. I've printed this body of work. And that's enough for me, really. I think that's it. And I can sort of push that slightly out of my mind. I quite like doing that. So if I did a body of work about, I don't know, the tree in the front garden, I've printed the work out. I'll still take photographs of the tree, but I won't do a second printed work.
Yeah.
I never used to print my work at all, you see. It was not interested in it, really. I did some snapshots of the stone circles. But I went I won a prize of them in a magazine. I went away to, I met a guy who was a columnist in a magazine, and I knew his work. And he said, "Won't we go on a sort of trip?" So I thought, all right. And so we went off to a trip, and he said to me, "You take such care with you, but you never print it." And I said, "Well, it's quite expensive. I'm not sure what to do about this." But he wouldn't stop moaning about me to be a person. On and on. I've got enough already. So I came back, I bought a big Epson printer, which I've got already, and bought some printing paper. And then I bought books and some web tutorials. I love working from books rather than the web. And I just thought about what I was doing. And I thought, oh, goodness me. And then I suddenly saw my photographs printed on like 300 GSM paper. And that's a revelation to me. That was something else. And I thought, this is fantastic. And then we did a group exhibition together with a guy I'd been away with. And he got a sponsorship with people who supplied paper, like 50% off. Because you know how expensive paper can be.
Definitely, yeah.
And then I printed like a fiend. I used to proof print on A2 paper. It was insane.
Here I'm with my little A4 thing behind me.
I've been A2 printed that he had for 12, 15 years now. It's still going strong.
Nice.
And I've been just printing not too big, that read off the way.
I suppose you can do that when you're getting 50% off your paper.
Yeah, but all the same, it was just crazy. But he got me to print. He used to print these sort of test strips.
Mm-hmm.
The schoolgirls just do it big, So So I print a lot of work. I love printing work, and I put them in either portfolios, or you can get these snapshot portfolios or portfolio boxes, and so that's a wonderful thing to do to see print work. I didn't do many. I didn't do very many photographic talks, but the ones I did do, there's only a handful. I used to have a portfolio of prints with me and say to people, have a touch and see what it's like. Get you in printing. That's wonderful. Because otherwise you've got your stuff on your hard drive. And if you pop your logs, nobody's going to be looking at that.
No, definitely not. Yeah. I'm a very strong advocate for printing your work, and I said this on the podcast several times, but I print a book each year, which is a mixture of snapshots, family things, events for holidays, whatever, but also some artistic stuff just to feed my ego a little bit. But yeah, it's a wonderful thing to be able to take that. I don't sell it. I don't give it to anyone else. It sits on the shelf, and when you want to go and take a look at it, and right behind me in the bottom shelf of this bookshelf are the old big fat photo albums that have got all of the old 4x5s that we took of all of our children. And it kind of replaces those because they're now about that thin instead of those big fat plastic sleeve things that you used to get. But printing to me is the end game for any photographic pursuit, as far as I'm concerned. I get, social media and all those sorts of things are a big deal for some, but to me, if it's not printed, it's not really finished.
That's a fair do. I mean, I've got not me that I go out to really to see. Sometimes it's just join the process. Sometimes it's out to feed a project.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes some of the images, they go to an agency for book covers. I don't take images forth. You look at work in a project and you think, I wonder if they may be suitable. Also, but the project drives, it's the engine. And usually I have in the back of my mind, I would do an edit to print.
Yep.
My partner, Joan, is a fantastic editor. She was a children's book artist, and she was taught photography in a darkroom by her dad. And so she had all that history of messing around with stuff and chemicals and God knows what else. No, I've never done that at all.
Wow.
I've seen it all done and everything else. I like the analog process, but in terms of when I do like screen printing and I do that, I quite like that.
Yep.
Or modern printing, that's very interesting. And I like doing that. But printing is usually there. And so I've got about 3 things to have a look. I've printed out on A4 paper. I have a look. I print on a PDF, first of all. Exhibit A, small little things. And I think, well, they work well. I then print on A4, very cheap A4 paper.
Yeah.
Just churn it through. And then I think, actually, they work quite well. I think they're good. And if I was going to do a print, I'd ask Shona and she'd say, what are you on about? Well, I could tell. And then you think, oh, yes. Yes, all the shapes will work much better now. I'm getting better at it.
Mm-hmm.
She made, there's an aside, talk about printing, she made me a beautiful book, like a Japanese book. I printed on Japanese hurting paper. Beautiful aguami paper, fantastic texture of the trees in the garden.
Nice.
And she made the book because she's a bookmaker.
Okay.
And the cover it's on my website under enclosure. I've done a video of it. And it's beautiful. She's hand painted this, she's done this, she's done that, and stuff what have you. All I did was print some black and white photos. And she's put it all over. People go, they look fantastic. Yes, it does, doesn't it? Yes.
Presentation's everything, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, her book stuff is fantastic. And it's, different from what you might, it's artist books, which are different. But there's always that physical output, which is very satisfying in today's digital world, where people sort of say, oh, I've got 62,000 photos of my dog on my phone or what have you. And you're thinking, why not print a few out in that sort of thing? Yes.
Hang them on your wall, put them in a book, and make a book of your dog. I don't think what your images are. If you're printing them, then you're getting there.
If I've done a project, I think I've done enough, and I think I've completed that particular project. Like you, it's printing is the final bit. Where that goes, whether it's in a beloved book or a handmade book or in a portfolio, that's only the sort of like almost a step, but the major step is printing it.
Yeah.
And getting it really good. And that's a very satisfying thing coming in.
Absolutely. You mentioned the exhibitions. I'm not sure if the one you were talking about with your friend was one of your first, but you've done a number of exhibitions. That exhibition experience is always I think, quite a daunting step for a lot of photographers that haven't done it before. What was it like for you the first time you exhibited?
I was getting to the point where I thought, could I do something like this? Is it going to be scarily expensive?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do? So I went to a few exhibitions, and there was a big sort of like country park thing near where I used to live that hosted Wildlife Photographer of the Year, the travelling show.
Yep.
And they had room for about 20 A3 pictures. And they said to me, yeah, let's have a look at your work. And I thought, I could do this. And it's just a case of when you take the first step, it's quite daunting. If you take the first step, there's no backseat, so you're on. And then I just thought, okay, let's have a look. So I got it printed online. I got some mounts. It was a minimal amount of work. So my photos fitted the mounts. I wasn't hand cutting any mounts. No. Then came in and you could buy these frames that looked fine online. So I could get a reasonable framed picture for a very small cost. And I thought, let's put some labels on there. But I've seen before people just put labels. So I put them on like little foam back things, about 20 pictures. And I thought, that's really nice. Again, you see, it's printing.
Yep.
It's printing and showing. And now I do printing, but I don't do the showing so much. But it's more printing and showing. And that's really, when I look back, that's what I was after. If somebody had stepped in and said, you don't need to exhibit your work, David. What you can do is just put it in a book. I'll probably would have gone down that route.
Yeah.
But so I did that. And then the second one, I thought I could do a project. There's this town in the South Coast called Christchurch, in Aberdeenshire, and they had 2 exhibition spaces in the old workhouse, beautiful red brick building. And you could rent this space, lovely wooden floor, plain walls. You could rent this space for enough. You could get about 25 A3 pictures in it for about £50 for a month. It was fantastic.
That's brilliant.
All they wanted to see was to make sure there was nothing too outrageous in your exhibition. So I said, I'm doing landscapes of that New Forest. And off we went. And that was that. It's only later on when I did this stuff with the guy I went away with that I got professionals to print. I wanted big print. I couldn't do that. I wanted, I then began to print at 30 by 20 inches, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So I used some right savings for that. And that was all right. And you sort of economically, if you broke even, that was all right. You know what it's like. You come home, you've got 40 frames in the lot.
Yeah. What you can't see over here beside my thing is a stack of mats and prints in frames and things that, they're just sitting there.
I'm a great destroyer. I've got no sentimental attachment to anything. If I don't like it, it goes off.
Nice.
Some things there, I don't keep things. If I keep my books, and that's about it. Some of the books, but otherwise I chuck things out. But I love being in a group exhibition. That dynamic was fantastic because you had usually it was a theme, and that was brilliant. So I did more of that sort of stuff, and that was very good. And then my pal Andy Bell and I had in its small exhibition space, and we wanted to make the exhibition feel as though you're looking through a fast-moving film. And I love playing with those ideas and everything else. And in Southampton, just before I came up to Scotland, in the Southampton Library, which is the base of the big Southampton Gallery, they had a little exhibition space. And I thought I wanted to go and get some pictures there of Southampton Common. So I met with the curator, and she said, why don't you do one of the big rooms upstairs? I thought, this a big room, right next to Burne Jones's room. And she said, we're doing a series with local artists called Recording the Region. And she said, your work would fit in there. So I thought, this is going to cost a bit. So I managed to get about £12,000 in Art Council funding to do this. Then what I know now, I should have applied for about 30,000 quid's worth. I gave £75,000 to a couple of dancers to dance in a primary school. I was I felt I was chasing my arm. No, 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 don't do that.
Yeah. Always ask for way more than you think you need.
I wanted to do my work in light boxes. They were about £2,000 a pop.
Yeah.
You know, and I just thought, no, no. So I managed to get some big prints, some 70-inch prints, and I wanted to do other things. Like I wanted to print on silk hanging from the ceiling. So I wanted to feel that if you're walking through the trees, it felt like walking through the trees.
Yep.
I wanted to print on stuff coming off the walls. But because it was a listed building, you couldn't do any of that. So it's basically pictures on walls is what we wanted.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was a non-selling exhibition, and that was just for the pure joy of it. And I loved doing that. That was the whole process of trying to get the funding to show that you would engage another artist to make an artist book of everything else. If I was going to stay down there, we were going to do a second part of the project where you got photographs printed and they were mounted outside on the common where I'd taken the images in that sort of system. But, all these ideas. And that was the thing about funding that you had to be a collaborative process, for community.
Yep.
We printed a lot of books. We gave the books away. We even did the old workshop trick of giving away these like little A5 mats with a puppetry cut in there and saying, take that away with you and look through there. That's what a photographer does. That sort of stuff. We printed thousands of those.
Yeah, yeah.
5,000 postcards, a couple of hundred books to give away to people and that sorts of stuff. I didn't pay for any of it, so it was great.
Nice.
But I'm sorry, after that, everything else is a bit deflated. It's not.
That's not quite the same level. Yeah. The process that you talked about of getting funding and all those sorts of things, I kind of get. The bit I really am fascinated with is how people make the choices in what goes in and what gets culled. You having an editor as a wife probably helps because she can lend her eye and say, yes, no. How do you go about that? And when you're doing an exhibition, what's it like? Because I think with many photographers, each image has its own memories associated with it. It has its own sort of background history that you have built up around it because you created it. How do you cull them and say, well, no, not that one, but yes, that one? How do you pick your favourite children, basically?
Well, you've got to use them quite readily. That's great. Sometimes some people are great. They just say, if they've got 2 pages of a book and you can see relationships between these and these, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
If I look at that Southampton Common project, you had a really woody part, so that was easy. Then you had a really open part, that was easy to look at that. Then you had, there's a lot of water there.
Yep.
And then you had the graveyard, which was the cemetery, which is magnificent, overgrown, 27 acres of graveyard. It's fantastic.
Wow. No.
It was like some Gothic thing. And so I thought, well, there we are. There's my constituent part. And somebody said, you've got pathways. They can be the spine that links towards it. Once I had that, I thought, yeah, brilliant. So after that, you then just look, I print and I look at relationships between these. Does that work? Does this work? Does this work? When I did a little book about On the Sands of Forth, here's a project, I thought, can I make a project at a one day or one visit of the Sands of Forth? Can that be done? Can it be coherent? Will it be, will it make sense about these things? So I went off and I did do it. For me, I think it was successful. But when I was choosing images, I knew I was tracing pages, so I knew there had to be a relationship between that image and this image.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you see a photographer like Ian Sargent, who I mentioned in the email, when you see his books, you think, what? And then suddenly you get it. There's a relationship between this chainmail fence this bit of the port or something like that. And you feel as though you've just solved a puzzle to yourself. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it makes you work a bit. So that's that sort of lovely relationship. So I try to look for those in a way. Does this go well? Sherman is very good about that. So we did a book about the jackdaws that live in our garden. And I did printed her aloud, and she said, these 9 are the best ones, but also they're going to love to flame like this. Like a jackdaw flight going through the scene.
Nice.
So let's go and sit in the shed for a bit. It was just too good. It was that sort of idea, you see. If you've got that lovely artistic and visual outlook, I think for some people it's not say easy, but it's just intuitive to them, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think over time you also gain that experience and confidence in making those choices. But it is a struggle because, as I say, you're looking at, okay, which child am I going to cull?
Well, you get something that's very, very strong now. See, I love this, but it
doesn't fit or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's lovely if every image is a brilliant standout one on their own. That's great. But if you're producing them, knowing you're going to do a body of work and that they can support each other, and that's enough, I think. You don't want to go along. Sometimes you may want to go along and say, "What's that doing now?" But it's very, it's like when you release stuff into the world, you've got no control over it.
You have absolutely no control over how people react to it at all. What do you do when you get negative feedback? And that's always an interesting test, I think, of your own resilience, but also understanding your art.
I've got very thick skin.
Good.
I can understand. It depends. It depends what people say.
It depends on how.
Yeah. If people sort of say, I don't think that sort of particularly works. Then it was a very old blog. I think it might have been called The Online Photographer. And he did a wonderful series of showing, he might still be around in the archives. This is 20 odd years ago, of showing classic photography and the very first color photograph. And people's modern comments on that. And that sort of stuff. Stuff is like, Henry Carter breasts on and people go, oh, I want to put the person there. Oh, so he needs to go to my camera club. That sort of stuff. That was a bit of fun, but it depends. I don't mind criticism. I used to be part of various groups, and we used to have a thicker group where we used to put up a photograph for critical stuff. But if you're going to do a decent piece of criticism, you've got to justify it.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You may say, look, I'm not engaged with this, and because I think of this, that, and the other. That was quite a nice period of time where you could do that sorts of things, where if you felt images you weren't sure about, or pieces of work you weren't sure about. And we used to do this, I suppose people did it in the film days, didn't they? They would give a negative to someone, to 4 printers, and each printer would have it produced. So we used to upload our raw files.
Yep.
And say, do what you want with the raw files. That was quite an interesting thing when people came back, you see. Because, I knew nothing about this. I always thought that if you take a photograph, someone printed it, and you printed it yourself. I had no idea people send up things to master printers. No idea. But that was in the early days. And then when you start if you give a raw file to someone else to have a look at it, but we used to do this stuff for criticism. That was a couple of years. I was that sort of thicker group. That was quite interesting stuff, and it helped you not to say I can produce this stuff, but help you to edit.
Yep.
I have a friend whose brother attends a camera club, and he takes photographs just to please the judges. Now, if he's happy doing that, knock yourself out. And I'd say its actual reason for doing it, that's great. You've got artistic, you've got some expression, and that's great. I think if you've got confidence in what you're doing, get on with it.
Yeah.
In fact, I should have my partner, she said, you have stapled paint it on your wall there. Get on with it. With massive letters.
Nice.
Not wasting time. Get on with it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in my early 60s, you know, and time is going by rapidly, can I say? And then you're thinking, get on with it. Yeah, stop using reasons not to do this stuff. You know?
Yeah.
I
I think it's really easy to find ways to procrastinate and not do things. And actually getting on and doing things is very much the way that you should go. But I think a lot of people don't do it for whatever reason.
Yes. So I think negative feedback, whosoever defined, can help you maybe in the editing process. But if you put up images and say, I don't like this, they think, oh, all right, then fair enough. You know, I mean, there was a golden moment on Twitter where it was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could push out all the other nonsense. And for artistic stuff, for looking at work, for producing work, for getting feedback on work, selling work, buying work, it was brilliant. For about 4 or 5 years, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Before it all went rubbish. And that was a wonderful feedback thing. What I liked was that was an echo of what we used to get when we did the photo blogs. I used to have all the photo blogs I'd followed, about 200 odd, you had an RSS feed, and you just refresh the feed, and you go down, they uploaded a new image, and off you went. And you get loads of comments, helpful comments, supportive comments. You know, I don't mind if people say I don't like this sort of stuff. It'd be nice to know.
Yeah.
I think this happened the other thing, you see. My brother-in-law's not a photographer. And he sent me a photo and he said, what do you think about this? And I said in a kind way, basically, were you falling over when you found it? Because the horizon's not always straight. He's never given me another photo to look at. I did it in a nice way, but sort of.
My daughters and my wife always take photos like that, and they do it deliberately because I'm very OCD about horizons. I think I made a comment a few years ago about one of their photos saying, yeah, well, it would have been nice if the sea wasn't flowing off to the left-hand corner then.
I think if we go for an artistic reason, that's great. It's only a bit of fun. In the early photo blog days, this is nothing really, but someone put up a photograph and you can see their tripod leg was on the edge of the corner. So for football days, we just put us. But it was just, yeah, if you can get some helpful stuff, you've got a good pal that you trust.
Yeah.
I've got a pal in Glasgow, which is 3 hours away, and I sent him a PDF of what I thought of the book I was going to do, you know. And he was wonderful. He came back and he actually did a video of when he thought about it all. And I know it's just brilliant. You don't have to take all those ideas on board, but 95% of the ideas are great, and you think, and he explains why. I thought, oh, that's fantastic. He said,
Yeah.
So that's that, you know. But I've developed a very thick skin over the years with that sorts of stuff, you know. How do you take it? Are you all right? Are you okay with it?
I love constructive feedback. And if somebody doesn't like something for whatever reason, as long as it's justifiable to them, I might still love the image, but they don't. They have their reasons. But if I can also take on board that, okay, I see what you're saying there. This doesn't quite gel. It's not quite balanced. It's okay. Your tones aren't quite right here or whatever, you know, some of the technical aspects. But I guess this is the thing with artistic expression is that feedback is just that. It is feedback, and you can take it or leave it. And constructive where it is helpful to you, where it points out maybe a technical flaw that you've left a bit of your tripod leg in the lower left corner or whatever it is. Those sorts of things can be very helpful in getting you to, oh yeah, well, I should have sorted that out. You will then think about that stuff. You don't forget the really good feedback that you get that says, yeah, you made this mistake. Okay, well, that's not a mistake I'm not going to try to make that mistake ever again, and I'm going to keep my eye on it, you know. So I think it's a very even negative feedback can be a very positive experience if it's delivered in the right way, in the right spirit, and you trust the judgment of the people that are giving it. The random comments that you might get on social media, whatever, I don't care, you know. Most of them it is interesting when you look at the images that are posted by some of these people that are posting some of the nasties, and you go, well, okay, I don't know that I want to listen to you when it comes to saying that's a good photo or not, you know. I like it, and
it's very difficult now, you know, because you never know the motivations of people, and
well, this is it.
Yeah.
I've had some people where I think there's genuinely a mental issue, and I've reached out to them and sort of said, "Are you okay? I think, you know, maybe you need to go and have a chat to somebody," in a nice way, not quite that blunt.
Well, I never had a visitor book at any of my exhibitions. Never at all. Like, what way all that for? You know, I used to get a lot of training for work, and I had to do it in a particular way. And it's you know, in your room with 50 people, or 2 or 3 people probably had an issue with it. Okay,
That's
so
it.
I've always had a sort of thick skin about when that sort of incident was happening. I don't like unfairness.
Oh, absolutely.
That's not right. But from my own work, but if you're going to put work out there into the then you have to expect people are going to may take issue with some of the stuff, or you don't like the work or stuff. Well, it's not for you, you know. It's for someone else.
Yeah, and I absolutely get not everyone is going to like everything that you do. So you've got to put your big boy pants or big girl pants on and say, well, you know, some people are going to like it, some people aren't. C'est la vie.
Very much so. Yes.
You've moved to Scotland, and I'm keen to understand why. Sounds like solitude is part of that, or at least peace and quiet. It may be part of that. But how has that affected your photography? Is it something that you're really actively pursuing in a much greater way now, or is it just an extension and somewhere that's just new and different you're exploring?
It's different. Well, I met my current partner about 10 years ago. We could have moved anywhere we wanted to move. And he's from Scotland. Where I live down south now can get quite warm and busy, and I'm not keen about that. I had a lucky childhood in the 60s where you go off down to the local river, splash around, off you go, you know, that sorts of stuff, and come back. And I wanted a bit more away from the city centre.
Sure.
We're in this older house now and what have you. Is it different? Yes, the photography is different because I miss the New Forest sometimes, because that was great. That was 22 minutes on the door. You have got forests here, but they are different.
Yeah.
But what I have done is I wanted to go, I thought, right, let's go off to the coast. And the coast is about 25 minutes away. The thing about the coasts on where we are in northeast Scotland, they're very similar to the coast down south of England.
Yep.
You've got the sea, you've got the sand, you've got the sea, and you've got the sky. There's nothing else. So you've got to look for these different interpretations and compositions. Sometimes you've got a pier sticking out. When I was into the long exposure photography, anything sticking out into the sea was like catnip. There's a pier. There's a drainage pipe. You know, there's no rock or anything at all. A bit further down by the New Forest, where it butts up against the sea, there was something called the Dolphins. That was the remain of the D-Day landing bits. There was
actually visited that beach,
The word beach as well is, again, doing a lot of heavy lifting, but that
it's just beach is an interesting way of putting it, I guess.
You were attracted to that. Well, you get a lot of that up here. You've got nothing. You've got a bit further down south, about 5 miles. You've got all the wind turbines that have upset Trump by his golf course. You've got all that. And that's on that horizon. So I was taking photographs of the sea, of the sea, of the sea. And it's wonderful. And I love. And there's these dunes. I mean, they're fantastic. They move and everything else.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I'll walk out and have a look at these dunes. And I thought, what I'm getting here is a bit like the changing the seasons in the forest. It's the same location, but it's all moving. It's different. I go to the same bits, parts, and they're all moving, and they've changed and stuff. I don't know what it is. Somebody just engaged with me. And also, it's completely different to what traditional landscape photography is. It's when people say, go out, 5 a.m., up there for the sunrise, go for the sunset. You go out in midday here, and it's a clear blue sky. A lot of seascape photographers may say, oh, terrible. But this is wonderful for June. You've got the beautiful shapes. Then you get the frost on them and pick.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. I've got so much material now. I've printed a few, not many, but it's just wonderful. It's wonderful that then, to my mind, it's a hell of a walk out there. It's about 22 minutes, 25 minutes, route march, you'd say. You walk by this estuary and you've got all these seals and stuff and what have you, and then you've got, you get lost in the dunes. It's wonderful. People just truckle down the other side to the beach. Not there's many people then, you see, but it's marvellous. So that's changed a lot. And also, where we are in 2 minutes walk, it gets now, open farming countryside, There's a big hill about 2 miles away from us, which has got the old slate mine workings from Georgian Victorian times. It's got wind turbines up there. That's interesting. You've got there's something called right to roam here in Scotland, which took me a long time to get used to. So if you've got a stubble field with no crops in it, you can walk across it.
Yeah, yeah.
In England, no way. It'd all be fenced up. Here, you can do that. As long as you're not harming anything at all or walking through crops, you can do all this. It's wonderful. So I've got a lot of images around of the aquarium there and farming. There's lots of abandoned farm buildings and stuff. So there's always something to take photographs of.
Yeah.
It's different than down south. So my work has changed a bit. There's always something,
In what way do you think it's changed?
Well, because I was mostly just seeing forest. There were fields in Hampshire, but you can get anywhere near them. They're just fields, that sort of stuff. Right. We've got a lot of potato growers around here, and they grow for seed potatoes. So you have these marvellous furrows going on, sorts of stuff. You've got, I've got the hillside across here, and they've got fences and things. You never had where I lived. I lived in the centre of Southampton.
Yeah.
And the local farmer was the supermarket. It was just, what are your crops? That's what it was. The crops, I don't know. And here you see it all.
Everything gets grown in tins.
We get birds, we've got foxes, we've got deer, and everything else all come up close to the garden and everything else, and it's just wonderful. So that's changed. So I would never photograph that type of thing. The project ethos is the same. The editing is the same, so that hasn't changed. My sea work is pretty much the same because I've got the same issues as I had down south. You have the beach, you have the sea, and you've got the shore.
Yep.
It's more difficult up here because when you had down south, you had all these like breakwater, these groins and that sorts of stuff. You don't need that up here. You see, I think it's a little more gentle. But it's interesting. You get more an abstract image up here, which I quite like. And you get the most exquisite sound patterns. That's like catnip. Every coastal photographer has got about 2 million of those, but it's wonderful to see. And you get the dune grass as well. And that's lovely. There's a great dunes photographer called John Gibbs who lives on the east coast, but much further down in England. He'll tell you about the most wonderful, photography you get just out of grass and dunes.
Yeah.
To me, that was always a way of getting to the sea because it used to be a few dunes. Oh, that's quite nice. But when I was down south, and there was a little bit of dune photography, You used to get these very old wooden fences going through it, and they used to be artistic. Oh, again, it's like, I think it's difficult to explain to people who are not into it.
Yeah.
This is sort of sidebar. I used to be part of a group that met down south in the South Coast every 2 months. There'd about 14 of us, and we used to show work, printing work, what we're working on. And that was wonderful. But to kill our drive, my pal used to drive an hour to me, to all the way down there. Show printed work in great. There are some wildlife photographers. I can appreciate the skill, and it's wonderful, but I had zero interest in taking wildlife photos, you see. So it's that different approach, I think you get landscapers, you get people who have, I just people looking at people who've got a different quirk, on what you see. That's why I started going with my pal Andy. You go there, and we would be not side by side, but almost. And we'd come away. I think, where were you? It was just, its vision was fantastic.
Yeah.
We were in the forest once, and you said, "Oh, there's an Andy Barry image right there." And I thought, my God, it is. It's just like the conjunction of the trees, the relationships, the repetition, which I'd never used to see at all. And then, anyway.
Excellent. What do you see as photography's place in society?
Frankly, I think
it's a small side.
I think it depends, really, isn't it? I think documentary, very, very, very important. I saw when Japan had the tsunami that wiped out all the lives and the things. You saw lots and lots and lots of video of it. But a newspaper here, I forget how long ago that was, but a newspaper here ran a big double-page spread that you could I thought a photograph of it. So you could really, really, I always remember that, you could really see into it all. I think it's very important on documentary. I'm not too bothered about some photographs. That's very important, just showing what's going on, how it's going to be. But also, people, and I mean like not individual, and then by the culture, this has a role.
Yeah.
An artistic output also. I'm not one of those people that says photograph has to be what you see through the view, because if it is, I would like to have some of those 400mm eyes that you're looking at. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of that compression going on when I look at it.
All that. I know it is peak photographs from back to front sharpness, but I didn't do that. So I like the artistic interpretation. I think you have to be honest in it. I think if you say, "Oh, I went down to the coast today, it looked great," and people think, "I'm being dead in that big coast," but if you just want to have an expression of something, that's beautiful to do that. So I think it has a role. Everything else that's artistic, that's a cultural event. And you get my thesaurus, a cultural, yes. It's a cultural event. It's an important role. I find it equally important as every other artistic, whether it's kitchen or painting. People get caught up in the craft of it, and it seems to be easy also.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, the cameras can do all this and everything else. So that raises again for the person behind the camera to really do something spectacular. If they can do so, to see something. People walk by and go, "Oh, it's just a tree. What are you worried about?" And then you say, "Do we have a relationship between this and that?" And kind of that makes you feel better. And that's a wonderful thing to do. Then for people to look at a photograph, so people may look at a photograph and just say, "You know what? That was my father's favorite place. Every time I look at it, I think of him." That's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I think Brett has a role as well. That's emotional content, I think.
Yeah. I think those memories that you can stir for somebody that are associated with the place, and whether the interpretation that you've put together is documentary style or whether it's more artistic and you've gone long exposure or whatever. If you've got and I've had a few people come and say, "Oh yeah, well I remember going to that beach and being there for holidays or whatever," or I've as you said, that was my father's favourite place or whatever. Those sorts of reactions that you get and those memories that you stir with people, I guess, tend to weave themselves into the work itself.
I mean, it can provoke a reaction. I've got a photograph of my war here printed by, that was one of my partner, my father, who's a fantastic artist, doctor and a surgeon, a great photographer. And it's two ladies at a wedding thing, laughing. And every time I see her, I get this big uplift.
Nice.
But I also look at work that makes you feel raw, not scary or stuff, what have you. Don McCullen, the great photographer, has got a piece of work that he took, I think, in Syria. It's very emotional. Of a mother who lost her husband, and her son is reaching out and touching her, and it's very powerful, extraordinarily powerful piece of work about suffering and loss, but love as well. That's very one most I have to. It's very moving, very, very moving. And you think 2D image, and why?
Well, a still image as well in these days.
It's not moving or sound can make you feel this way.
Yeah, and it tells
it's even thinking it now, I can feel it's very, very because you make people bring their own feelings and thoughts and experiences to this as well, and very powerful stuff. It can be,
I totally agree. What do you like to do when you're not doing photography?
I retired from work about 2-3 years ago. That took a lot of time. And my partner said, why don't you go a year early? Don't live here and you yelling at the people at work, or yelling at the team and the technology. Now, why don't you just give all of that up? I've met my colleagues, they've met me. It's an overrated experience on both ways, so I'm just getting rid of it all. So that's all of a sudden you've got all this time to fill, and people, fantastic. So I do a lot of other stuff. I've always been a great reader. I love the time to read. When I was commuting into London, that was a great time to read.
Yeah,
I take a lot of work, photographic work. I do a lot with it. We've got a 6-year-old Cocker Spaniel. That gets you out to the bed. Or does that get you out in the bed? That's lovely. And we might take the little car off and go through. Probably East Coast, where we are. It's very quiet. In Scotland, people often flock off to the West Coast, to the dramatic thing. And it's all wonderful, all the midges and the locks and the caravans and everything else. The North Coast 500, So 500-mile route. And they try to do the Northeast 250. Didn't work. So it's nice and quiet there. You get all these working professional villages, take the dog out, walk out there. That sort of stuff. I read a lot. I try to do some other artistic things. I've been on courses of doing etchings, and I love doing sort of mono screen printing. That's very good. That's very satisfying because I suppose it might be a bit like film photography. You're never quite certain what you get, do you?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
When you think about the film, you don't get. I've always had that instant feedback. With film, if you're very good, you get an idea of what you're going to get. You can a big thing.
If you know how to use your camera well, then you've got a bit of an idea about what you're going to get. But yeah, until it comes out, and particularly if you're doing your own developing you make a slip up there and you don't get anything.
Well, the mono screen printing's like that. You go one-off.
Yeah.
Bad luck.
Too bad.
I mean, it's very hard nowadays to take a rubbish photograph in terms of exposure and focus. It's amazing now, isn't it? All
definitely.
You can say, oh, there's something going by, or car, or wave, or so you can sit there and take 6,000 images. 6,000 images on a 5x4 will probably bankrupt you, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
I went on a trip once, and people were going, now, is it 10x8 negatives?
Yeah.
With big, large formats?
Yeah, large format.
It's not beautiful, but you say, that's £25 a time, all of that.
That's right. Have to be very selective about what you shoot with large.
Very much so, yes. Yeah. There's a YouTube video William Eggleston printing his, not him, but printing William Eggleston died.
Yeah.
My goodness, that's convoluted. People in the comments, they said, I did this in college in the 80s. And only once, though, because it's very, so many factors are going wrong. That was like with my partner, she did painting and drawing, and you have happy accidents because there's no undo button, that sort of stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. There's great walking around here. You walk out, tune out, read, get the dog out, do some drawing, bit of painting, that sort of stuff, Look at the birds, listen to the birds,
Nice.
My partner's a great gardener. I can do some lopping.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah. Because with that, you get to, I've said this before to people, you get to a time in life, where you're approaching the end. You don't think, you know what, I wish I spent more time in the office, risk management meetings, or it's an Excel spreadsheet or something like that.
Just think of the time you wasted doing performance evaluation.
Have you set fires or anything? No. Good job. They were happy what I do. I don't miss that. People, there's another photographer called Mark Littlejohn who's in the police, and he retired, but he worked on the boats on the Lake District, the tourist boats. He said it was my minimum wage job, but he said I loved doing it because he loved the lakes and he loved talking to people. And I thought, that's brilliant. Knock yourself out. Just do that. And that's just absolutely wonderful. If you can get that sorts of things.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law is sort of semi-retired, but he runs a sort of power washing, not business, but he likes the interaction, the chat, whatever it takes to get you through the day. If you want to sit in your room and read and or watch TV, knock yourself out. Which it's such a transitory experience here, but it's later than we think, isn't it?
That's it. And you only get one shot at it too. That's a bit.
It goes out for Eastern religions.
Anyway, we should probably think about wrapping up. I've got a couple more questions though.
Sure.
Are there any photographers that you think I need to be talking to?
Yeah. There's a guy called Mark Wilson. That's M-A-R-C Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I went to an exhibition of his. He is a great storyteller. He does books. He makes living truths through the books. He's got these fantastic books. He did something called The Last Stand, which is all about the remnants of the World War II construction in this country. But more than that, he was talking to people. That sort of stuff. He did a big book about the Holocaust survivors. He's done books about Ukraine and sort of stuff. He's a great storyteller. That's what he is, really. And, a technical person where it is, and I think he may still do it, taking photographs with the old cloth over your head, that sort of stuff. Izzy Shepherd is I met her a couple of times. She's a wonderful landscape photographer. She's that landscape photographer where you look and think, oh, that's a Izzy Shepherd work. That's quite a good thing to have because landscape photographers, you can't move for him. The Ians and Daves and the Andys, there's loads of them, you think good. And Ian Sargent, I always misspell his surname, he's great. What I like about him, again, he produces a lot of books and he also publishes a lot of other photographers. But Ian's got a wonderful eye of looking at it every day and making it significant. And that's quite something. The only person I knew who did that was my pal Andy Bell from Deceptive Media. He would look at something and you think, goodness me, you've seen something that people would not walk by. So Ian does a lot of that as well. He's very good.
Fantastic.
The stuff is very good. It's in parts, when you see the books, there's relationships between things and there's a wonderful irony. There's another guy, Al Bryden as well. He does a lot of inventive work. It's quite powerful stuff. He did a whole project, I can't remember the name of it, where he would expose, say, 12 frames on a piece of film and send it to his pal in America, who would rewrite it and re-expose the same 12 things, the same 12 frames, but in American.
Okay.
And I thought, what? That's a fantastic idea. What a wonderful idea. That collaboration's a wonderful thing.
Definitely.
I could name probably loads of them. And Rachel Talibot, she does a fantastic sea work. You know, that's
I've spoken to Rachel. Yeah, she's wonderful. Yeah.
There's loads and loads and loads and loads of them.
All right. Well, thank you for those. My last question is possibly my most important one. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
I'm not a huge pizza fan, believe it or not.
Okay.
I have difficulty with bread. That was all. So when I ate the pizza, I'd leave the crust. Also, I love pineapple juice.
Okay.
It's hilarious fruit.
It is.
They're really more. It was such a symbol of wealth, wasn't it? In the 1750s, it was an amazing symbol of wealth. And you go to the supermarket and you see one for about £1, and you're thinking that's extraordinary value for what it has to get from there to there.
It is. Yeah, it's insane how cheap they can be.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, do you like pineapple on pizza?
I don't order it, but if it's on there, I'm not picking it off. I'm eating it.
It's a bit like a raisin in a salad. You know, it's a bit of.
I don't mind a raisin in a salad. It's okay. I'm definitely okay with that. Walnuts, raisins, yeah. What do you like in a salad? All right. Well,
excellent. But thanks very much. It's been lovely. Yeah, it's been really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, David. It has been an absolute joy talking to you. Where can people find your work?
I have a website called Milu Vision. That's MILOUVISION. Why Milu? Because Milu is the proper name for Tintin's dog Snowy, and I was a huge Tintin fan. When I was very young, my mum used to go off to the local jumble sale and come back with a big roll of comics, tied up in string and twine, and sometimes in there was a Tintin book, and I was mesmerized. I've always been a Tintin fan, and so Milu, and I thought, Vision, why not? So that's about it.
I used to love a bit of Tintin myself in my younger days. What's your favourite Tintin book?
Black Island.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Because there's fantastic him on a boat going in there. I remember looking at it as a child. Explorers on a Moon is very good as well. I remember looking at a child and just thinking, how is that even possible? You know, it's just, and again, it was like, because I was always such a reader at a young age, it's that transporting you, I suppose it's a bit like photography sometimes, or when you know, artwork, transporting you to another place. And it's a wonderful thing to do.
One of my favourites is King Okata's Sceptre. And what that was for me was those drawings of the mountainous sort of Balkan area, where Eastern European areas that it was set, and those drawings just sort of grabbed my attention, and always held it. And definitely the Black Island, that was a pretty good one too.
I've got more here, and I've got the books by someone Thrice, who's anyway, the book, everything else that goes along with it, and so what have you. I thought about being a collector for a while. Where do you stop? Where do you start? Eventually you would want one of his original drawings, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's a scary premise.
Yeah, just the cost alone would be enough to put me off.
And you've got to put all that stuff somewhere, don't you? Really?
Definitely. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. There's a thin line between collector and hoarder, isn't there?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and this is a great thing because how far away you must be? 20,000 miles?
Yeah.
It's not an extraordinary thing. Isn't that extraordinary? Isn't it technology for the good? Yeah, that's an extraordinary thing in real time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely insane when you think about it. That would blow my dad's mind. That would have.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for being on the show. It has been, as I say, a pure pleasure talking to you, David. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. I do ramble on, but thanks very much. Grant, all right.
I love the rambling. Thank you. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show. Keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also found on lots of different social media. Just look for my name. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, get the word out there that this podcast is something you listen to, and recommend it to your friends. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.